you are, as we've often discussed at this panel, a number of the problems you are not going to arrest your way out, because if it's got to that point, something else has gone long further up the chain. So I think that prevention, early intervention principle is really important here when it comes to ASB, because it is a blight on people's well-being at times. The most important change for PCC is the PCC duty. There's a new statute duty on PCCs. For the first time, a PCC must promote awareness of the ASB case review. We said there already is a review process. It is important to pause here and say that's not an appeal of how the local authority or policing have done things. It's whether they followed the right process. Very similar when I've spoken to you about the review of complaints. We don't reinvestigate the complaint, but what we do is has the right process, have they followed the guidance, etc., etc., and that would be the same here. It's quite complex. It does mean we've got to make sure systems are talking to each other, and what proposals is we need to look at better data sharing and information sharing with our partners, and it's something that we will need to develop. But we do conduct, as I said, a number of ASB case reviews, and those have increased in recent times. And as I said, for September, I think the team that doing stag sort of like brought them to the meeting as well, because if you have specific queries, they could probably answer, very much at the tip of their fingers. Behind this is to ensure that there's a route for victims to query decisions that are being made around the process. So I think it's really important. We need to monitor it as we, it may increase hopefully it will increase awareness, but then that's likely to increase demand. So, again, at a time, and I know later on in the agenda we'll talk about the reforms, at a time when we've got lots of other challenges to our business as usual as well. So this is a significant shift, I guess, in terms of raising profile, and it moves what was previously good practice into a legal requirement. So it wasn't really a duty, so it's placed it on a duty now, which will create a more direct and visible role for victims as well, support the victims. So it hopefully strengthens transparency and accountability, because we will have to publish all of this as well. It formalises the role of the PCC, and giving victims a clearer voice is the intention. Again, I come back to the proof will be put in, but that certainly is what we are looking to develop as an office at the moment, and we've got some dedicated resource to support that. Importantly, what it doesn't do is doesn't create the appeal system, as I've mentioned, but and it does not change the operational responsibility. And we've always run that line, and if the chief was here, and I'm sure that the DCC would kick me if I stepped into that, is we are not there to direct operational policing, but we're out there to oversee its effectiveness. Reviews are still carried out by the local authorities, by policing, and by other partners of social landlords themselves. There is a sort of hierarchy as well of appeal process as well. So, but it's, I think, maybe not clear, and the public probably are not aware of that. I think that's something we also need to address. So work we've already got underway is to monitor the key dates. We are waiting for the secondary legislation as well. We are developing an implementation plan for this as well, and aligning it to the police crime and justice plan, and what implications it has for aspects of that plan. We also have to design a clear public access route to the review process, and develop awareness campaigns. And again, I think when you were talking earlier about comms and I think it's a really valid point, and I think it's something we need to build into this as well. We are engaging partners. We've already had significant work that we are doing, ongoing communication with the force itself, but also local authorities through both formal and informal. We have very good relationships, particularly with community safety teams, and through the public service boards as well. We have other partners are linked in as well, so that's very much an avenue for us, and indeed housing providers. So we're already fairly well placed, I would suggest, within South Wales as well, because we already support the ASB case review with partners, and as I mentioned, we've dedicated some resource in addition to what we previously had to this. Some of the considerations, the implementation of all of this will determine whether they really add value. So I think part of it is we need to monitor how they're going to be used, whether they make a difference or not. So we have to have that baseline, and we have done some significant work through, again, some of Mitch's scrutiny work right up to the Commissioner's Oversight Board around where we currently are. The increase in fines will require proportionate use, of course, because you can also get very negative headlines with this. Are we targeting the right people? And we are very aware that there might be resource implications with increased demand. And further detail is still expected by secondary legislation to give us a bit more meat on the bones as well in terms of these changes. So to sum up, really, we thought it'd be very useful for you to be aware of changes. Quite likely you've already raised that there are some concerns locally. We do breakdowns when we meet regularly with local leaders and chief executives, and as I said, at a lower level, then we engage through community safety partnerships, which we still also contribute funding into local authorities. But we work very closely with community safety leads, both on the foresight and within local authorities. And this is a key discussion point as well. And we work very closely with your local, but to give you reassurance. But more than happy to touch base with your local authorities if that's helpful, if there are any gaps in that. Obviously, please note the new duty, which we are looking to embed, and we're putting plans and resources into. And as I mentioned at the end, then I think it will be important for us to come back to you. And I've noted the request from earlier to this paper as well. We'll break it down into some of the more operational detail, but also to give you a bit of an overview of previous oversight in this space, in terms of what's working well and what's not working well, and actually some of the issues in terms of probably what you're more interested in is what are the things that you've actually raised in terms of awareness, consistency across South Wales. And that's not to finger point, it's just sometimes the resourcing with some partners isn't the same, isn't consistent across all of South Wales, and that ability to share information, whether it's either systems aren't in place or a lack of understanding of responsibilities is one of those areas. So we are working hard to address some of those. We have, in relation to the existing situation, but we will carry that through to the changes. So I thought it would be very useful to do that scene setting, but certainly based on, I've made a note of all of the things you've raised earlier to bring back to the September meeting with more detail. But as I said, I'll also ask my colleagues to probably present on the more detailed work that they've done for the next meeting as well. Okay, Chair, and I'm happy to answer any immediate questions.
No, I think that's really helpful, and it'll be helpful to see as the systems are developed how that progresses both in planning and in implementation. Has anyone got any questions? Sean, and I'm conscious.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. It's really encouraging. Earlier in your remarks, you said about the recorded ASBOs has reduced. Do you have any figures on that? Which is reduced? And just quickly, I'm sure you welcome all these new powers available, and the expectations by the public will be that you enforce that. Will there, you touched on there may be an impact on resources, but what will the impact on resources be, and are we able to meet that? Because I think monitoring how we enforce this going forward, I think it's really important.
So
to get some management results out of that, so people can see what's happening.
Absolutely. Thank you for those questions. Yeah, in terms of the exact numbers, I'll have to come back to you. What I was quoting was going back to 2014. So
right, okay.
We know that the trend is come down, but we still know in 2025 there were over 18,000 ASB reports. But we also feel that there's probably a significant number of underreporting, and social behaviour is a broad church, so where it sits. So, but in terms of more detail, I think that in terms of numbers, it would probably be useful if we broke it down into
that would be
for the more detailed report,
and possibly areas as well.
Yeah, And so we'll make a note of that, and when we come back in September, we'll give you a bit more of a breakdown of that, because I think it's really important to use the evidence and data to target it as well, because one size doesn't fit all across South Wales. As you know, you will represent different areas and will have different challenges, so that's important.
And we all have different levels of antisocial behaviour, which I said before, but I think no matter where you are in the country, we're all suffering the same issues right across the country, and it's shown to know that we're dealing with it a little bit better than some others.
I think so, but it's clearly a national problem, hence the national change in legislation. So, and that not really reassuring, but it's just to say, really. So, sorry, there was another follow-up question, but I know you had two other. So the resourcing. Yes, at the moment, we are working within our existing resources. So I've allocated an existing member of the team is taking the responsibility for this. When the reviews come in, though, they are quite significant. So we may have to review that. There is no new money, so we may have the usual choice of, or do we stop doing in order to maintain this, or how can we use technology to help us? Added to that, of course, we have the additional dilemma of the reforms and how we manage that, and staff retention. At the moment, I would say we can manage it with our existing resources, but it's something I will continue to monitor.
Can I just chuck a quick one in there, please, Chair? So in terms of resources, something I raised in our pre-meeting, which was the Home Office have put many resources into issues in Northern Ireland, and that's right across the country. I assume we play in our part in taking some resources to Northern Ireland. Has that impacted us in terms of stretching our resources?
So
I go off the tangent a bit.
Yes, we are, as part of the National Policing Requirement, Strategic Policing Requirement, we are required to send resources, but the impact on us is limited at the moment. Right. We do have specialist assets as part of that mobilisation.
And do we get reimbursed from UK government?
There's mutual aid funding for a similar incident. So I don't know the specifics of that, but there is reimbursement there on those occasions. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jen.
Okay. I'm just conscious of, and be very quick, but with the data-led approach and evidence-led approach to antisocial behaviour and the aspects of that, I'm just conscious with underreporting. I represent a ward where there's quite a high degree of poverty, and underreporting quite often happens there. And it'd be interesting when you do present that, about how that evidence base includes not just the formal reporting, but that intelligence that if that's happening in areas, because I think sometimes that doesn't get seen as visibly, and there's quite a lot of work I know that gets done behind the scenes on that.
I think you've been that we do think there needs to be more focus on, which is the data and capturing that and the analysis of that and the evaluation of it. I think there is limited capacity or capability both, I suppose, there, and having the right systems in place. So that's one of the things that we are working with some partners to improve.
It's really good. Thank you. I'm conscious Tony asked a question, but is yours relating to this? Yeah, do you mind if it's only because I'm realising that.
Well, my background is education and secondary age, pupils, and I'm just curious, when you do the reporting and the statistics, the data, it'd be good. It would be good for us to have some idea of, categories, the types of antisocial behaviour. I know there's all different types, but I'm sure you can categorise to a certain extent, and the age and sex of the people that are doing it, because that would highlight to me, we've got a youth club now within our ward because we had antisocial behaviour, not a huge amount of it, but it helped us get funding for certain things. And unless you highlight certain things, you can't have preventative systems within your area. So it would be interesting to know who you're targeting then and what you're actually doing as a preventative. If there are a lot of 12 to 16-year-olds, what's happening in our areas and how are we working with other agencies to do preventative work, because it's just going to cost more money further down the line, isn't it? Not just money, it's all other aspects. But
no, it's and as you're all aware, the Commissioner is very keen on promoting work with children and young people, and has a separate children and young persons plan. So I think it's an area of focus. So certainly we'll note that in terms of the coming back to you. But there will be data that's held. I mean, we are very lucky, we're very data rich on that. But I think it's also important to, as I say, I think one of the priorities for the Commissioner is that prevention and early intervention space, and that's certainly working with young people is critically important. But it will be, as I mentioned several times, you want to get in early, so you're not criminalising people early if you can prevent that. So it is certainly would be a partnership approach. So yeah, all noted, and I think that's something.
Absolutely, because without that data, I wouldn't have been able to implement something within the ward. So I think it's really important that it's out there.
It's really noted as well that the changes in legislation are adults only. So it means that the importance of the impetus and momentum we put into youth-related issues is it remains and picks up.
But also that young adult cohort, isn't it? Especially we see now with maturity levels and with our young people.
Yeah.
Thank you. Tony?
Yeah, just want to establish whether you feel you have sufficient powers, either under the ASB legislation or any other, to deal with the problem of gypsies. My ward is next to one where there used to be the tin plate works for Lindra. Now that's a regular base where they turn up. They were moved off earlier this year, moved 2 miles up the road to the WDA site on what is known as Pentlinger Business Park. So these people are around and they keep coming back. How can we get rid of them? Do you have the powers? So that at one stage, I think that they could challenge through the court. If you want your land back, you'd have to go to court. Does that still apply, or can you move people on?
So the legislation is for all communities. So the ASB changes the legislation will be for all communities, specifically related to the question, predominantly the local authority driven powers, not police driven powers, and each individual case will be determined on its merits. So by all means, if you have a particular issue, I'll take your details and I'll arrange for somebody to come back to you and answer your question in more detail. It's not something I probably want to go into without knowing the specifics of the case.
Exactly.
I think as well, it's probably important that I can see here there's monitoring proportionality, and also key to that is disproportionality, and we don't end up marginalising or demonising members of our communities. And so
just one thing about the closure notices that I was just wondering if you could say a bit more, or just guide me to where I might be able to get some more information really. So I note the point about extending it to registered social housing. Is that about things like cuckooing, or is it about closure notices on flats, or is that, how would that impact on tenancies? And that's that relationship between both.
Well, I think it could be all of that, and you'd have to apply to the magistrates court as well. So that's where it could be the Housing Association or the authority. So,
but is it more for sort of homes and things like that rather than shops, or is it?
Yes, I think yes. Sorry.
Rent Smart Wales have those powers as well.
Okay.
Dealing with antisocial behaviour.
But again, I think we're still awaiting some of any changes, some additional guidance or legislation on it. But yeah, sorry.
That's quite interesting, actually. Just wanted to get some more information. But thank you very much, Dave.
If I can assist, I mean, it's part of what I do in my day job with the council. So closure orders will cover antisocial houses where there's terrible problems for neighbours. Both the councils dealt with those. With South Wales Police, we work so closely with the police because they are normally with the normal antisocial behaviour premises. The police are probably our main witnesses. The council has always taken these actions, but they've been opened up now to social landlords. We've closed brothels in the past, again with South Wales Police, and we have closed on numerous occasions shops that are selling counterfeit goods, vape shops primarily.
Yes.
So we've always used them as a council for those kinds of instances. But I did note that it's been moved out now to allow social landlords to do that. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, thank you, Simon. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Well, thank you. You did mention crime and behaviour order. If any members haven't used that, is what's going down that line. Because we had a problem in my area and the gun shop. Simon was involved with it on the legal side. Because this guy was going around begging, then bringing in, pinching, shoplifting, you name it, and everything. Right? It took us a year, right, to have this sorted out. But when it worked, even the residents and the gunners be quiet. They have no much problems till about 6 months. But the biggest issue that when you're a criminal order, you have to go to prison. And if you're seen in the gunners again, any time over 2 years, he was arrested. Now, you can imagine him walking in that area and people say to the police, oh, he's there. You took action. You couldn't believe it, how quick it was to take action, to take him down prison. And I think that guy been in about 4 times saying.
Yeah, again, this is another matter. We work with South Wales Police. It was a gentleman that was causing huge issues at the shops. We got a community protection notice against him, and as sure as night following day, he breached that community protection.
He did 4 times.
And then it was a criminal behaviour order, and he ended up in prison. But I mean, that was a good. I think share that
on that is community support of the police, because you could see things happening. He was taken away. Everyone was quiet. People could walk around. Everybody thought they were safe, and that's the big issue. People say something was done, but it took too long to myself, and they want to be cut down a bit shorter. Because if they're paying the butt all the time, they will be right. You're not going to change. I could see something stronger than that, but it won't time. but it's not going to change. These people are not concerned about us, nothing. That's all they have for concern themselves. But we should look at something. How can we bring it down shorter?
I think what we've got here and these new powers are a number of tools that you can pull down from the shelf, which you can use for the appropriate particular antisocial issue. In that case, it was a community protection notice, criminal behaviour order, shops, etc. The closure orders. You can get antisocial behaviour injunctions. A lot of them, you can use them for a number of things, but the more tools you've got, the better and the quicker you can respond to these issues.
I was going to say, I assume some of these will be more rapid than others, and some will
For members to know it's something there for you. If I haven't used it before, right?
Really important.
If I haven't used it before, it's there for you. And I mean it, because it took us a long time to get there. But as I say, it's a limited time. Get it quicker.
Yeah. And perception is everything, is what I pointed to it, and that might address the underreporting as well, because we've all heard it. What's the point of reporting it? Nothing happens. But that's not true. But the perception is that it doesn't. But if people can see something's happened, if they can see the bikes are being snatched, if they can see them on the street, the perception is something's happening, and it's worth reporting.
And
Well,
it
sure.
increases that confidence.
It increases the confidence.
And even the shopkeepers realised how important it was. And they started telling the staff to report it.
Yeah.
Because same will tell you, oh, no, report that. I'm dealing with customers from money. So, good doing.
Thank you.
I think that doesn't happen. You have the incidents in your ward, you report it, the incidents go away, and then a few months later they come back, and you've just got to say, you've got to keep reporting, haven't you? Because people say, oh, well, there's no point. Well, there is a point, because it went, isn't it? But it's just continuous, isn't it?
Thank you. Okay, so Liam, thank you for this. And you mentioned about sort of the plans with the PCC. I don't know if there's any updates. I know your team have been extremely busy, haven't they, with the changes that are coming. I think that's probably going to be something which will be asked at every meeting, really, if there's anything new, if that's okay.
Problem. There's been a lot of activity, but not a huge amount to say, I suppose.
Yeah.
And that's not because I for want of not wanting to share any information. To give you reassurance that the PCC is very much taking a leading role in influencing this as chair of policing in Wales, with currently Amanda Blakeman, who's Chief of North Wales, and as we've touched on, the Chief Constable is also taking a leading role on behalf of the Chiefs Council. And in fact, the Chief is in London today at a ministerial meeting. I'm going to be shooting off to join online on behalf of the Commissioner after this meeting, where we're meeting the Policing Minister to hopefully get a bit more detail. The significant amount of this as well, because of the sensitivities, isn't to be in the public domain, not what I'm going to tell you now, but we just don't know. So there have been a number of work streams which myself and my colleagues and a number of people around this table have been attending in terms of it. I think there's a realization how complex the issue is in terms of the potential for government arrangements. What running as a twin track to this is the discussion around force reorganisation. Although what I would say on that front is that's looking at proposals for 2035, so Bernard Hogan Howe has stated. So I think the focus for me initially is what are the implications post 2028, when we know the PCCs will no longer be with us, but what will we be transitioning over? At the moment, what we're being told is all of the responsibilities will move over to whatever the new arrangements will be. The detail of which we are hoping will come in the bill, which originally was due to land prior to the summer recess. We are now told it will be after, so in September. So until we see the bill, we are still unsure what the end model is we're working to. That said, on a practical level, and we've touched on before, we are looking to maintain business as usual, the delivery of the plan the best we can. But we will have to be fluid, because once we know we're into the transition period, that's going to get harder, just on from a practical perspective, and in terms of managing the staff as well and their well-being, which is a concern. So I have been actually working closely with the Deputy already in terms of high-level transition plan, of which I've got 8 work streams provisionally put up for that. You can imagine it's not just the staff elements and the potential implications there, but it's also the transition of any of the legal responsibilities, to managing those. Of interest to everyone around the table will be our commissioner and grant issuing powers and what will happen there. Annually there's about 2.2 million goes into local authorities across the 7 local authorities, and obviously we can't commit beyond 2028 at the moment, but if we've got to be very careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're trying to work with central government and the Welsh government to understand what will transfer over, and therefore what we can continue and what isn't going to continue. So a stakeholder and communication plan is really important. One of the things I'm hoping to get out today is actually getting a bit more feedback from the Home Office. We're feeding in a lot, but not getting a lot back. I'm not making any comment on that, but it does make planning very, very difficult. So, but we are in Wales. I think we also have to keep probably boring our colleagues in England. I haven't say it's different in Wales, and of course there are constitutional challenges as well, because policing is not devolved to Welsh government; it's reserved to Westminster. So therefore, some of the changes being proposed for England would be more challenging for Wales. In position. So we're making the case of trying to work with so they understand that. And we also continuing to really play our part in terms of trying to influence a sense of direction. But I think you are right, Chair. I think it's something we're going to have to keep coming back to you with. And we're also very conscious not to cause any concern to staff unnecessarily, so keeping them as well as partners informed is really important, even if we haven't got a huge amount to say, and obviously you are a key partner in that as well. So I'm hoping, depending on the timing of September's panel, there you go, I've added another agenda item. The bill may have landed, which will to sort of give you a bit more of an overview of what we think the implications are, and when it's appropriate, I'm more than happy to talk through our transition plans as well, because I think within that we do need to build yourselves into not just the communication, but what the implications are for your forward plan and what we can realistically deliver for you as well.
Thank you. That's really useful, and I'm conscious. I know panel members have mentioned before about wanting to be able, if there's an opportunity to say their thoughts and views. And I know we were Sarah particularly was talking about bringing, maybe even reaching out to other panels to see if there's a vehicle in Wales to be able to say what they've learned from Wales, what they found helpful, maybe not, and things like that. So I just wonder if you do think that actually there could be an opportunity for that, it would be useful to know, because I think we'd welcome that opportunity, both as a South Wales panel, but also could reach out to our brother and sister panels across Wales.
Well, I do speak regularly on a weekly basis with my fellow chief executives as well, so I will mention this conversation to them and see what the feeling is with their respective panels, and I'm sure I can engage with Simon then in terms of.
Really welcome that. I know you've got lots on with this.
There's a lot of learning and legacy to be considered. I mean, I know you know that. It's just an individual sort of learning as well as collective, really, what we've learned from that full process and how that can be utilised by whatever systems are in place going forward. I did write to all panel members last week just about, whether we consider an informal session, but definitely linking in with other people to gather that, because I think it's a lot to be learned and taking forward in terms of gaps, constraints, but also how we felt we did really well in terms of supporting those processes, really. So.
Sorry, Chair, I think just you're absolutely right, and trying to be a bit more positive about this. I think there is an opportunity here in terms of what fly on the wall when I did have sort of speaking to some of the Home Office civil servants was sort of trying to feed in what works well and what hasn't worked so well. So if you do have sort of views on that, that might be helpful, because I can reflect my personal view on this, but it would be good to hear it from yourselves as well.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe we could convene a subgroup in between the meetings so that we can get that information to them. Is everyone happy to do that? Yeah, thank you. There was just one thing. I know you've brought up, Sarah, about Claire Cortino. Would you like to take the opportunity to speak about that?
I've just noticed in the last couple of weeks whether I'm fortunately on some algorithm that means my stuff gets funny. Some correspondence between Claire Cortino and the Chief Constable about guidance given to police officers, and I know that she was reporting that. I find the letter now online, but she was also writing to the Home Secretary about that. And I mean, not that I think there was anything necessarily wrong with the guidance that was given. I'm not bringing that to attention, but the issues of reputation for the South Wales Police, and given the current climate, I think that I welcome. You may not be able to report back on that, but I welcome some feedback on that, because I know the guidance has been withdrawn as far as I understand, but I know that what you see on media isn't necessarily what's going on, really. So some sense of that process. I'm also linking it back into our last meeting about sort of some issue about external bodies impacting and writing about scrutiny, and I just think that's interesting, isn't it, about what's going on, about whether that's going on for other police forces as well, or whether it's particularly targeted at what's going on in South Wales, undermining confidence in that process, because that concerns me a little bit, really. So there's a whole barrage of stuff in there, Lee. There's any other business that I don't,
I'll probably hand over to Jason on that, because I know we're anticipating you quite rightly would raise a query with this. What I would say is I don't think this is South Wales specific. I think these letters have gone out. It just happens to be that South Wales was drawn into this unintentionally.
I've seen it on local media in Cardiff about what do we all think about this, and I just think it whips up.
Of course it does.
A lot of nonsense.
And that's a lesson. Yes. Itself, I think, actually, and as you can imagine, it stirred a lot of conversation, and I know the Chief and the Dep are probably in a better position to respond to that, because we've had correspondence into the Commissioner as well, but we wanted to understand
Yes.
the accuracy of it, because as you can imagine as well, the what's being reported and what's happening in reality don't always align. So
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So the chief has written back to Claire Coutinho over the last week, outlining the fact that we paused the guidance that was provided. In fact, it wasn't guidance; it was a communication that related to the government's announcement on that specific issue. I think it was a case of, from an EDI perspective, trying to do the right thing, but doing the wrong thing in the process. And we want to express that we want to be reliable, accessible, and trusted by all our communities, not in terms of isolating one over another. And we live and work in a society at the moment where those polarized views are playing out more than ever before. So it's important that we stand scrutiny as an organisation. We reflect back on that as an error, but we paused it pending NPCC guidance, National Police Chiefs Council guidance, and Welsh Government consideration of the definition as well. But again, I come back to the fact that we want to be accessible, reliable, and trusted by all our communities, not specifically focused in on one or another.
Thank you. That's really helpful and reassuring from my perspective, really. So,
Thank you.
can I just the point that Bernie made last time about disproportionality and about how the fact that not all communities experience that sort of hate and that violence in the same kind of way, and I think recognising that is really important. So,
Okay, thank you. We have one more item, and that's
A question.
a question. So
Yeah.
I'll hand over to
The
Simon.
AOB, but the public have the right to ask questions or make statements to the meeting. I'm not sure if this can be answered today because the Commissioner isn't here. It's a very short question. It's from a resident of Cardiff to ask, does the Commissioner support the reform policy to abolish the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit in Wales? I don't know if you can answer that or whether or not you want to come back.
Can I come back to you with that one, just because
Yeah.
the Commissioner's not here today? And
It's going to be a very short answer, I would have thought, but it's a short question as well. So, okay, that's all, Chair.
Thank you. And I'm not aware of any other business. So thank you. Thank you everyone for today. And thank you for being so open with what you've told us.
Thank you.
Take care.
thank you.